Sri Ramaynam, one of the earliest accounts of the history of Bharat, and Ravanasura, a very important character in the history of Bharat. Very inspirational, I must say, for not so very good reasons. And a lot of us have pretty much a similar understanding. However, in recent times, there has been a trend of glorification of Ravanasura, generally from a sect of filmmakers, pseudo-feminists, politicians, activists, etc. Problem is not that these guys are glorifying, but the problem is on what basis are these guys glorifying? That's the question. Let's try and find the answers. What is truth and what is not? What is the real character of Ravanasura? There are hundreds of versions of Sri Ramayanam, but the actual source remains just one, which is the Valmiki Ramayanam. So in this video, we are going to take our frame of reference strictly as Valmiki Ramayanam, not an inch outside of Valmiki Ramayanam. Just that is going to be our baseline to understand the character of Ravanasura. And one very important thing is we are not going to resort to any kind of interpretation or extrapolation. It is just a word-to-word translation that we're going to see in this video, because I want to make this video as incontrovertible as possible. So all we're going to see here is a word-to-word translation from Valmiki Ramayana. So let's break this documentary into three parts. The first one is the background of Ravana. The second one is general distortions about Ravana that we have been seeing in the mainstream. What is actually written in Valmiki Ramayanam and what we get to hear generally out there in the public sphere. And the third one is the most important one, the real character of Ravanasura as given in Valmiki Ramayanam. So let's get started. So that's the first chapter, the background of Ravana. Valmiki Maharshi, while authoring Sri Ramayanam, in the very beginning of it, he gave three names to this epic. Kavyam Ramayanam Krutsnam Sitayas Charitam Mahat Paulasya Vadhamityevam Chakara Charitat Vrataha. So the three names that Valmiki Maharshi gave to this epic is, the first one, we all know that it is Ramayanam, and it translates to the journey of Sri Rama, the way he moved throughout his life in different circumstances. So that's what the exact meaning of Ramayanam means. And the second name of this epic as given by Valmiki Maharshi is Sitayas Charitam Mahat, or Sita Charitam in short, which means the biography of Sita, the greatness of the life history of Sita. That's what it means, Sitayas Charitam Mahat. And the third name is Paulasya Vadha, which means how Paulasya got killed. Paulasya here means Ravana. And it's quite important to understand why he is called as Paulasya, because that essentially tells us the background of Ravana. So let's try and understand the family tree of Ravana. At the top, there is Brahmadeva in the position of the creator of this cosmos. And then we have Saptarishis, or the seven celestial sages. Atri, Angirasa, Pulaha, Pulastya, Kratu, Marichi, and Vasistha Maharshi. Of these seven, Pulastya Maharshi has a son named Vishrava, who marries a lady named Ilavida, and they have a son, Kubera. And again, Vishrava marries Kaikasi, and they both have four children, Ravana, Surpanaka, Vibhishana, and Kumbhakarna. So here, as Ravana is the grandson of Pulastya Maharshi, he is also called as Paulastya, and hence the reason why Valmiki Maharshi gave a name to Ramayanam also as Paulastya Vadha. By birth, he was given the name Dasagreeva, the one with 10 heads, and also Paulasya. But the name Ravana is given to him by Lord Shiva, which is again a different story. But if we just look at the meaning of the word Ravana, Ravayiti iti Ravanaha, which means the one who has a violent and loud cry. That is the meaning of Ravana. And we can come across a more detailed meaning of Ravana in the Yuddha Kanda. Just before the war, Ravana sends a Rakshasa, Shuka, as his messenger to Sugriva and Hanuman. And these are the words said by Shuka about Ravana, praising him. Ravano Loka Ravana, which means Ravana, the one who could make the whole world cry. So the name Ravana has a very negative connotation, where it says that the one who could inflict pain and suffering and make the whole world cry. That is Ravana. Ravana is also a very ardent devotee of Lord Shiva. And not just that, He is also very well versed in Vedas and warfare and a lot more, and especially music. Jatata Vitala Jwala Prabhava Pavitastale Galevalambya Lambitam Bhujangatunga Malikam Dhamad 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 Dhaman Ninada Maddamarvayam Chakara Chanda Tandava Tanotuna Shiva Shivam. This is from the Shiva Tandava Stotram, and we do celebrate the prowess of Ravanasura till today in the form of the Shiva Tandava Stotram. And what you're seeing in the back is a manuscript of Shiva Tandava Stotram, couple of hundreds of years old, documented by an unknown author. So anyways, coming back, Ravanasura is a very ardent devotee of Lord Shiva and is also very well versed in Vedas and Shastras, and is incredibly talented and indeed a very great personality. Ravana, Dasagreeva, Paulasya, and he also has another name, Lankeshwara. That's because he waged a war against his brother Kubera and gained control over Lanka, which is described as a very beautiful city as per Valmiki Ramayana. So that's all in all a quick background about Ravanasura. Now comes the chapter, the general distortions about Ravana, the very reason which motivated me to make this documentary. Now let's see the real truth behind the claims of the pseudo-feminists and certain sect of actors who kind of glorify Ravana. Let's see it in black and white. Before we get any further, let me tell you the purpose of Sri Ramaynam, the reason why it has been followed since generations. It has been revered as a tool for self-introspection to refine oneself. And the key takeaways from Sri Ramaynam has always been the ethics, values and morals. So when you read through, say for instance, if you like the character of Ravana, you can be like Ravana, and eventually the consequences follow. And same way, if I like Hanuman, I can be like Hanuman, and the consequences associated with his life as part of Valmiki Ramayana will follow. So it's that simple. But nobody has a right to twist the tale or distort the Valmiki Ramayana and try to extrapolate to suit their political or religious agenda. And that is exactly what's happening with this bunch of activists, politicians, actors, and the pseudo-feminists. So getting straight to the point, one of the most important distortions about Ravana is he never touched Sita Devi. And this has been used as one of the prime reasons to glorify him, saying that see how noble is Ravana, that he never touched Sita Devi despite abducting her. Absolute nonsense, and this is why I'm saying so. Vamena Sitam Padmajakshim Murdhajeshu Karena Saha Urvehetu Dakshinena Eva Parijjagraha Panina. And here is a word-to-word translation. Ravanasura with his Vamena Karena, with his left hand, Murdhajeshu, holding her hair, holding Sita Devi by her hair, and Dakshinena Panina, and with his right hands, Urvehe, placed under her thighs, lifted up Sita Devi. Basically, he grabbed her by the hair and lifted up her in an extremely inappropriate manner. And as she tries to resist and fight back, he eventually grabs her by her waist and abducts her. And this painting, what you're seeing here, drawn by Raja Ravi Verma, shows exactly how she was abducted by Ravana as per Valmiki Ramayana. Now you might think, why is it so big deal about this one? Let me tell you, this very fact that Ravanasura never touched Sita is being used as a stupid reason for glorification of Ravanasura. I mean, what these idiots are up to, it's absolutely nonsense. They just throw some kind of knee-jerk reaction statements and get away with cheap publicity. That's what is happening. And that is the reason why I have to go to this level of depth to put things in black and white. Another very important distortion about Ravana is when Sita Devi was in his hostage in Lanka, he treated her very well. This again is my foot nonsense. Read chapter number 20 of Sundarakanda, and I bet it will be very difficult for you to read because Ravana talks to Sita Devi in an extremely vulgar and inappropriate manner even by today's standards. If a man talks to a stranger woman in that way today will invite serious legal implications. I don't even want to translate what was spoken. You read for yourself. He describes her beauty in a very objectionable and inappropriate manner. The reality is Ravana tortures Sita Devi with his words and tries to lure her in becoming his consort. And not just that, even drives Sita Devi towards suicide. And I mean it. So these particular verses as part of Sundarakanda clearly explains where she says, Shariram Visarjamyaham, which means I want to die and leave this body. Driving a woman towards suicide. Well, that's the character of Ravana, for the record.
And this is another very heart-wrenching incident where he tortures her. During the war, at a moment when both Rama and Lakshmana fell unconscious, Ravana manipulates that situation, saying that they both are dead, and takes Sita Devi to the war field, showing her the bodies of Rama and Lakshmana, and tricks her, saying that they both are now dead. And this is one of the horrible tortures that Ravana puts Sita Devi through, because she believes that Rama was really killed by Ravana at that point in time. And also, a similar manipulation is also flipped towards Rama to demoralize him. An exact lookalike of Sita Devi is created, and she is dragged by her hair into the war field and beheaded by Indrajit, while Rama and Lakshmana and the whole army was watching. Beheading Sita Devi. That's what was done, at least created. Let's get to the most important distortion about Ravana, that the main reason why Ravana abducted Sita Devi is to avenge the pain that his sister has come across, Surpanaka. Now, I came across a couple of very idiotic and silly articles or public statements from a set of pseudo-feminists that they don't want a husband like Rama, but they want a brother like Ravana. Okay, let's leave the husband part aside. I'm not interested in that. Let's not talk about Rama. Let's focus only on Ravanasura. As I said, it's very important to learn about Ravanasura these days than learning about Rama. Now let us see the sequence of events which led to the abduction of Sita Devi. So firstly, while Sri Rama, Sita Devi and Lakshmana were in the forest, Surpanaka approaches Sri Rama and tries to lure him in accepting her as his wife. And in fact goes to the extent of attacking Sita Devi as she is a hurdle for Surpanaka to get to Rama. And then eventually Lakshmana, on an act of defense, disfigures her face and punishes her. And then Surpanaka, who is in pain, goes crying to her brothers Kara and Dushana, two other Rakshasas, who are also brothers of Ravana. And then Karadushana attacks Rama and Lakshmana. And eventually Rama and Lakshmana, in a fight with them, they kill the Kara and Dushana Rakshasas. Then eventually Ravana learns the fact that both Kara and Dushana were killed by Rama and Lakshmana. That's when Surpanaka twists the tale, saying that Rama, who was so powerful, who killed his brothers Kara and Dushana, was so powerful because he has a very beautiful wife with the name Sita. Surpanaka twists the tale, saying that whoever marries Sita will eventually become an invincible ruler of the worlds, and describes her incredible beauty to Ravanasura and drives him towards lust. And she says that while Surpanaka was trying to get Sita as a wife for Ravanasura, Rama and Lakshmana defended her and disfigured her face. So basically what Surpanaka is saying is, Sita is a very beautiful woman, and whoever marries her will eventually become an invincible ruler of all the worlds. And she very explicitly and intentionally drives Ravana towards lust and provokes her that he should marry Sita to become the ruler of the worlds. And this is the bloody reason why Ravana decided to abduct Sita, not to avenge the attack on Surpanaka, but to satisfy his lust. A simple common sense. If at all he has to avenge her sister's insult, he should be directly attacking Rama and Lakshmana, not abduct Sita. It's that simple common sense. There is not a single word written in Valmiki Ramayanam that Ravana decided to abduct Sita to avenge the insult done to his sister Surpanaka. And this slokam here are the last words spoken by Surpanaka to her brother Ravana, saying that if you desire to make her as your wife and if you aspire for success, quickly, now itself, go and bring her. And that's when Ravana moves to abduct Sita Devi. Now the reason I'm going into this level of detail is Ravana abducted Sita Devi to avenge the insult done to his sister Surpanaka. And this distortion is being portrayed as if he is a noble brother, but that's absolute nonsense. The only reason why he goes to abduct Sita Devi is he got moved by the beauty and charm of Sita Devi, and it's just nothing but lust of Ravanasura which drives to abduct Sita Devi. If you read Sri Ramaynam, you'll get to know the real facts. And this absolute nonsensical claims that I don't want a husband like Rama, I want a brother like Ravana, all these are stupid statements made by idiots who definitely would have never read Ramayanam in their entire life. So those are the general distortions about Ravanasura, which I tried my best to put forward things in black and white, with taking Valmiki Ramayanam as the baseline and the only reference. Now let's get to the third one, the real character of Ravanasura, putting all the pieces of puzzle together, what kind of a personality he really was. If I want to understand the character of a person, then the most reliable way of getting the facts is, if an enemy praises the good qualities in that person, then that will definitely be a very reliable account. And at the same time, to understand the bad qualities in the same person, if said by his or her own people, that would be a very reliable account. So that is the approach that I have taken here in articulating the character of Ravanasura as given in Valmiki Ramayana. Aho Rupam, Aho Dhairyam, Aho Sattvam, Aho Dyutihi, Aho Rakshasa Rajasya, Sarvalakshana Yuktata. These are the words spoken by Anjaneya Swami about Ravanasura when he encountered him for the first time. And the translation is, what a figure, what a courage, what a strength, what splendor, and what amalgam of auspicious marks this king of the demons has. In fact, Anjaneya Swami was shocked at one point in time looking at the grandeur of Ravanasura, his valor, his courage, and his strength. So as Anjaneya Swami is the prime enemy of Ravanasura, definitely these words spoken by him are very reliable about Ravanasura. But there is also an extension to the words of Anjaneya Swami about Ravanasura. He says that had this king of the demons not been on the wrong path or unrighteousness, had he not abducted Sita Devi, Ravanasura could have been the ruler of all the worlds. Such was his valor and strength. But just one huge mistake of abducting Sita Devi, another man's wife, has completely obliterated the character of Ravanasura. This is what Anjaneya Swami intends in his lines here. And very interestingly, this is what Sri Rama said about Ravana. Ravana may be full of unrighteousness and falsehood and all the adharma that he has committed throughout his life, but he was brilliant, strong, and ever a brave warrior in battles. Sri Rama himself praises Ravana for all his intellect, valor, courage, and strength. And indeed, Ravanasura was a very invincible warrior. Now that we have seen some of the best qualities of Ravanasura acknowledged by his own enemies, which I said will definitely be a reliable account, hearing your good qualities right from your enemies, let's see the bad qualities of Ravanasura said by his own wife, Mandodari. At the end of the battle, once Ravanasura was killed by Rama, Mandodari grieves his death in the battlefield, holding his dead body. And these are the words of Mandodari. At any time, there is no causeless death for any living being. As for you, Sita has become that cause. Then she goes on saying that it's not Rama who killed Ravana, but his insatiable lust and his abduction of Sita Devi are the reasons for his death. So that very clearly establishes that Ravana was a very lustful person. And in that grief, she also says that Ravana used to abduct women of gods, demons, and human beings. He brought in suffering for all those women. So basically, he used to abduct wives of other men and inflict pain and suffering on these women. And these are the words of Mandodari about her own husband, Ravanasura. You can literally see these words, Shatrustri Sokadataram, which means the one who used to give pain and suffering to the women of his enemies' wives. That was Ravanasura as per Mandodari. Another very important negative quality of Ravanasura was his arrogance and ego. There are tens of instances across Sri Ramaynam where many people advise Ravanasura to give back Sita Devi to Sri Rama, but still he doesn't pay heed to all those advices. His brother Kumbhakarna, Vibhishana, and his servant Maricha, his father-in-law, and Mandodari herself advises Ravana many times to return back Sita to Sri Rama. But Ravanasura was very arrogant, and he goes to the extent of all his brothers, children, and grandchildren, all of them, he drives them towards war and eventual death. Just for two reasons. Number one is his lust, number two, his arrogance. No matter how great qualities Ravanasura has, just these two factors, the lust and ego, made him bite the dust, and his entire kingdom got perished. And that is the most reliable account about Ravanasura, in a very unbiased manner, going strictly as per Valmiki Ramayana. The best thing with the history of Bharat is people here have the freedom to critique, question, analyze, and seek. Say, for instance, there are certain moments in Sri Ramayanam where you did not like the way Sri Rama spoke towards Sita Devi before Agni Pariksha. Yes, definitely you can critique it because it is indeed a very heart-wrenching moment for a woman to hear such words from her own husband. But at the same time, those moments should not lead way to politically or religiously alter the history in the interest of certain sect of people. There are tons and tons of great qualities from Sri Rama that are inspiration for more than 1 billion people in India. These few touchy moments in Sri Ramayanam gave way for people to glorify the other side of the table, which is Ravanasura. That is incredible nonsense and totally absurd. All the glorification of Ravanasura, we've just seen how the things are actually documented in Valmiki Ramayanam versus how certain sects of people are twisting the tail to suit their religious or political agenda. Now, this documentary is a small attempt to set the record straight and bring forward the facts and truth in black and white about Ravanasura. And as always, thanks for watching. Jai Sri Ram.